Scrum. And that is one of the agile project management methodology. One of them. There are others, okay? So what is the mindset here? What is the mindset here? There are some key elements of that mindset, okay? I'll be back to that picture in a few moments. First, we have an iterative approach, which means that you can do, then you can check, and you can review, and go to the next review, and go to the next step, okay? And go to the next step and do again. So that idea you can adapt. You can adapt to the feedback, client feedback. That's one thing that's very good. Another idea of Scrum, and Scrum, it means that something that we have to do, work together. Okay, work together. What does it mean? You put a team, and that is the traditional way of doing. Nowadays, you can do that virtually, but you put a team in one room, in one place. So one place, and you put everyone that is working the project in the same place. So they can talk to each other frequently, so they have the tables in the same area, in the same room. They share, so the coffee place is the same, and so they can speak to each other, exchange ideas, and they can, and that, you don't have communication problem between the team. That is the image in which we have here, that is from a sport called rugby, in which they have a scrum, a moment in that team in which they get together and try to push the adversary. And so they work together, they put the effort together in order to get to the objective. And that is the mindset. So there are two main things here. First, iterative approach. And second, enable a workplace in which people can interact with the other closely. And therefore they can do the job easily. So that is the idea of Scrum. And that's what we call work together. But that's just work. Just work. For some products, not all the products, some products you can do that. Why? Some products you are able to deliver a working piece of product. In a house, that doesn't work because you have to deliver the whole house to have some value. So the idea here is piece of work that has some value for the client, The technical term here, value is a business technical term. I like to call that benefits to the client. And that type, so one type of product that you can deliver pieces of work, it's all type of software based products. So that's why Agile and Scrum and adaptive project management methodologies are often used in software, because you can deliver one piece of the software that can do something for your client. And then you add another version, then you can add another piece of features in that software that are usable for the client, has a value for the client. So in here we can talk about websites, games, so video games, mobile games, information systems. First, it's iterative approach and Scrum. Can I use that for everything? No, probably not. Construction projects may not work very well with Scrum, okay? Software products or products in which you can deliver pieces that has some value for the customer, yes. So that's a type of project that can work in Agile. So in the Agile lifecycle, we have three main roles. Those roles are, we call project owner, the team, the expert that will be execute the task, and Scrum Master. Each one of those roles has some responsibilities in the project. Again, remember, we are preparing a plan and execution, in cycles, okay? We plan, execute, come back, review, plan again, execute. We are doing that in cycles, okay? So, and that's the idea. So what is the role of product owner? The product owner is in charge of the scope. Why? Because the project owner represents the client. Sometimes it's the client, sometimes it's the users, sometimes it's the sponsors. Okay? So that person is in charge of checking with the clients all the requirements. So the main job here, when we talk about scope, is about needs, client needs, wants, and requirements. Okay? So that's the guy. Another thing, of course, if you are doing cycles, you have a list of activities to be done, and you are doing cycles, that guy should have an idea what is the priority, okay? What should be done first? And also, because he is in contact with the client or sponsor, he has to ensure that the client is aware about the expenses and costs, if need extra budget and so on. That's the role of product owner. The team are the guys, the experts. We can say SME, subject matter experts. They are the guys that execute the tasks. So the main job is to execute the tasks. But also they are in charge, they should pay attention to the risks and make sure that they leave their tasks with quality as well. So, and that is usually in an agile project, you have one project owner, several experts that will be doing the work, and you have one person that in charge of make that methodology, that adaptive methodology happen. And that is the Scrum Master. So the Scrum Master will make sure that the routine, the work routine is favorable for adaptive methodology. So they'll be sharing the framework, try to remove some issues. If one person needs information, another person is busy with another thing and don't want to talk. So that guy is be doing try to accommodate. Every project is a kind of stressful environment. So he'll be working with the team, try to create health behaviors, and lead that continuous planning. There are some meetings that that guy has to talk about. So we have the sprint planning. We have the daily Scrum meeting that they have the sprint review at the end. So there are some meetings and replanning all the time and monitor and measure the progress. So we have, in here, we work with the concept of backlog. So backlog is a list of, let's say, deliverables and its activities. So that are for that group. So that is Scrum Master. How things work in practical terms. We have, so before you start here, of course, you have, usually that company went for a pre-project phase, some kind of initiation. I still recommend a project charter, some kind of scope definition. And here I still recommend using the WBS technique, in which you can come up with a concept of product backlog. A product backlog is the list of activities that need to be done. And you have here, for instance, you have one activity, two, so the blocks of or pieces of the product that we are doing. I like to call that, what we have here can be, because we usually talk about software, features is a good point, okay? Some features, but those things can be activities. So that's a product backlog. It's just a list of things that needs to do. It's a kind of to-do list for the project. To-do list for the project. You didn't plan for the whole project. What happened when they go for the first sprint, first cycle of execution? They select some activities, they have a meeting, they select some activities, to be executed in the cycle, in that working cycle. And we call that sprint backlog. It's kind of a to-do list to be executed in the sprint, in that cycle of execution. So once they do that, usually they do that sprint planning. If you talk about 2 weeks each sprint, so you have a fixed time of 2 weeks to do your job, that sprint plan usually is in the first day. You stop and do the sprint plan. During these 2 weeks, they will be working on those lists here. Okay, they'll be working on that list. So they work for 2 weeks. Every day they have a 15 minutes meeting just to check and see if everything's going fine. And after the 2 weeks, they stop. That's a hard stop. Okay, they stop. And in that stop, they see maybe they have some tasks that they finished, and they add that to the product. That's why you call that increment. And they may have tasks that are not finished, and that task come back to the backlog. Okay, the backlog. And in that review, so we come back for the next cycle. The next cycle, they take other tasks and move to the sprint backlog. And now we have the second sprint. So the agile project management is something that we do in cycles. And the huge benefits of doing cycle, that after each cycle, you can review, get a feedback, and before starting the second cycle, and so you can fix things, you can correct the direction of the project according to the customer needs. So that is what we call Scrum. Okay, that's part of Agile. It's one of the Agile project management methodology. That's part of that new idea, new philosophy that we call adaptive project management. Okay, so that's my view of the beginning. So what is interesting is to learn or understand the work dynamics inside the project team. The work dynamic inside the project team. There are some events. We have the sprint, that is the execution cycle, that can usually has a fixed duration, and it can go from 1 to usually to 4 weeks. I like to work with 2 weeks, but anyway, we have our initial at the beginning of each sprint. You have a planning. So again, you do the planning and execution for a piece of work of the project. A piece of the project. You don't plan for the whole project. You plan for just one piece. You have daily meetings, so people can talk. At the end of the sprint, you have the sprint review, and then you have some feedback in which you can input and change your work for the next sprint. So those are the main idea. Okay. Some documents that are specific to Agile or the Scrum. And again, I'm not saying that you should throw away all the documents that you have in your linear project management methodology, like Project Charter, WBS, scheduling. You may use those documents here as well. But besides that traditional project management document, we have what is a product backlog. So the comprehensive list of activities, of deliverables, and I will be /activities. Okay. The sprint backlog is the to-do list for the sprint, for that execution cycle. An increment is when you have your product and you'll be adding features to that project. So every time that you finish a sprint, you deliver one increment, and then you go for the second cycle, you have another increment in your final product. Let's come back here. In a linear project management methodology, we go for the requirements, and here we have the project, usually use project charter, you have then the scope, the WBS, and then those are the requirements. You design, you plan, you test, you deploy. okay? And then you execute. And execution. Again, you work on all the activities, all the features for that product. That's the linear project management. Agile, it calls empirical because you can test, you can check, okay? The outcome of project have intermediate checkpoints. So you just plan for the list of activities that you'll be executing in that specific cycle, in that specific sprint. And you'll be delivering small increments. You'll be delivering small increments. And then at the end of each increment, you can observe, check, and so you come back, plan the second execution cycle. So you take the outcome of the first cycle as input for the second cycle, and so on. You have the possibility to adapt quickly the client feedback. Okay, so just conclude that initial presentation. In a traditional or linear project management, we focus on the features. Where we get the features? We get the features from the project charter and the scope. Okay, project scope. Main tool in the project scope is the WBS. So once we have the WBS, we have a list of requirements, of features that needs to be done in the project. From there, we prepare the schedule and budget. But the focus here are the features. In the Agile project management, we have a fixed time. That means the execution cycle is fixed. And of course, you have a budget for that cycle, and you pull the features according to your time and the resources available. Okay, so you have a list of wants, and you'll be picking some wants that you say, that I can deliver in that time, 2 weeks, with the resources that I have. So it's a website. I have 3 web designers, so I have 2 weeks. So I take features that are possible to be executed by 3 web designers within 2 weeks. So it's a different philosophy, different approach. Agile, for most of the construction project, Agile is not suitable. It is not suitable. Okay, any construction is not suitable for that because you cannot deliver piece. Oh, I'll be delivering just the 10th floor of a building. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? You cannot do that. You have to deliver the whole building. Okay, so it's not suitable for Agile. But in terms of any product based on software, in which the only resource that you need is a software engineer and a computer, so you don't have to move materials, machines, and so on. The resource amount is you can put all the resources in a meeting room and do the job from there. That is where we have the strength of the Agile methodology, of the adaptive methodology. Most important characteristic, it's a short time box delivery cycles. And that has several benefits that we have spoke about before, but that's very important.